Hey everyone, Rob here from the Hurt Handbook, and today I have a special guest. And to kind of cut to the chase a little bit, if you know him, if you saw our Boston vlog, both of them actually, we have Combat FC Flyweight champion and now interim Bantamweight champion, and most importantly, it's his 29th birthday today. Carlos Lozoya joins us on the pod. How you doing today on your birthday, man?
I'm doing good. Dude, I've been so busy. My sister, I love her to death. She was a dick, and she messaged me today, and she was like, "Enjoy your last year in your 20s." I was like, "Dude, I didn't even think about it like that."
That's
But
like the worst.
no, I'm doing good, man.
That's awesome. You said you were
Yeah,
doing some computer science homework. I mean, you're a much smarter man than me. So I just
it's
took,
just good for my brain, I think.
oh, definitely. I mean, so to tell you like a little bit about myself a tiny bit, because obviously I went to school for journalism, and a couple of the people who were in my classes and stuff, they did computer science as a minor, and it sounded like it was a living hell. So I give you credit there.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
But to get to the fights and stuff, man, because I got to tell you, like the fight between you and Tom Picciano at Combat FC 8 might literally be the best fight I've ever seen live, like in person. And
Yeah.
so, first, thank you for that. But my question, kind of based off of it, you know, when you watch a war like that, in the moment, you're kind of like, just like, wow, this is a crazy fight. But then, like, afterwards, when I was really thinking about it, I say to myself, like, what goes through your mind, like when you're in a fight like that? That's such just like a battle the whole way through. Like, what's the psychological aspect of that like?
Like to me, uh, like at first, uh because at first I don't think really was a war up until the fifth round. But like to me, in that, because there's like stages to it. That first round, like it was slow, and it was because we were both feeling each other out. And honestly, like going up a weight class, I have to respect guys a little bit more because they're bigger. And so like what I was really trying to feel was like his speed and his power. So like that's what that first round was. And then once I got a feel of that, that second round, I really wanted to put a pace on him, and because I was starting to touch him with my jab, and I knew I could touch him, and I knew I could like, kind of like break him with my jab a little bit. And the third round, well, at the end of the second round, I hurt him. In that third round, I was like, okay, let me like start breaking him, and then I was like, I was just trying to keep touching him, and then I got too excited and started getting too wide. In that fourth round, I just kept trying to touch him. But to me, it was just like what was going through my mind was just break him, and then I try to finish him too hard so often that I gassed out in the fifth, and then I was walking forward with my hands down, you know. So and then at that point, it was just continue what I was doing. But I wasn't keeping my defense up. So then I got cracked in that fifth round. But no, that's and I've been through those before, and I try not to get in them uh, because I want a long career. But what goes in my mind is just like break them down slowly, and uh, no,
And
that's kind of what was going on.
how like hard is that to kind of like stick to a game plan when you have the guy as hurt as you had Tom a few of the times in the fight? Because obviously you come from a really good gym with New England Cartel. Like, do they kind of keep you locked in round by round?
Not really. The game plan at first was to grapple Tom, and I made that clear, in like all my interviews. Um, and I know he knew that was my game plan, but I came in so fucking sick, dude. Like every time I was losing my mouthpiece, it was because I was coughing. I was like coughing in the rounds,
Oh wow.
and so like when you cough, you can like if you put your hand in front of your mouth, it's like you could feel the air like come on your hand. So it was like pushing out my mouthpiece. But then when I felt him, I was like, "Fuck, that was a lot of energy, like taking him down and trying to hold him down." So I was like after I felt his power and speed, I was like, I'm gonna change this up a little bit and see if I can break him with my like with a jab, and it worked out. Um, but dude, I was so sick, and like I didn't honestly like. my last 3 weeks of training, like I did little to nothing because like I couldn't push myself. Like every time I would like try to work out, and then I would want to get my teammates sick either.
Right.
Every time I was working out, I was like it was literally like 50 to 60% of like what I usually do, and then like in that fight, I was like like my game plan. I was like, it's not like if I would have stuck with my game plan originally, I would have gassed myself out, and Tom would have won, and then or B, uh, I would have won, but it would have been another boring fight that Dana White and Mick Maynard and those guys really hate. So uh, I thought I made the right call trying to like outbox Tom because I could feel his power and his speed, and I thought I was like, at first I didn't think like before the fight I didn't think that I would be the better striker, but once I felt him, I was like, oh, okay, I'm definitely the better striker than Tom. So I just kind of switched it up.
Yeah, I mean, even with the grappling, I would say that in the earlier part of the fight too, like when you were grappling them pretty well, like those moments are really giving you the rounds, especially like even if the stuff on the feet wasn't happening, just to have that control time definitely helped a little bit. But like you mentioned being sick, like you said 3 weeks before the fight, what were you sick with?
I had COVID at
Oh
first.
wow.
There's like new, yeah, there's like the new strain of COVID. So I had that at first. So I work with kids, and then they're like all so sick in my gym. I was like, fuck. So I got COVID at first, and then I thought I still had COVID, but then I got sick again with like it honestly it felt like strep throat. I had like COVID and then like strep throat right after, and it was like
That's
one after another. So and then by the time of the fight, I'm pretty sure I still had that strep throat. I never got checked for the strep throat because I thought it was still COVID, but
How does that work with COVID nowadays? Because obviously we're a few years removed. Are they like still strict about the testing and stuff with that for a fight? Like,
I didn't mention it. I just wanted to fight. So
gotcha.
and
Yeah.
then and then like I was like kind of at like because 3 weeks out, like you're like, oh, I'll be sick for like a week and a half, and then I'll be over it. Because that was my experience with all the other times I had COVID. So like I was like, at least I got sick now and not right before my fight. And then I stayed sick, and then what I'm pretty sure what actually happened was like I was sick, and I was starting to get better. I was like, okay, I'm about to be better. And then like immediately I got sick again. And I started feeling like shit again. It's like, God damn it. I was like, this is like a long time to be sick.
That's the
um
worst.
dude, it was shitty. But no,
I gotta,
yeah,
I, I, I not
go
to
ahead.
cut you off. I wanted to ask you this too. Like, in this fight, obviously there was some adversity and even more than I figured, like before I started talking to you today. But even in your last fight against Kasanov at Combat FC 7, like there was a moment in there where you were hurt. Like, where does that mentality that you have, like, where does that come from? Because clearly you're able to dig pretty deep and you've shown a lot of hearts in the fights that I've seen you fight in.
I don't think it's hard. I think my attitude is always break people, and for Dobbs I broke him, and then Tom, I broke him, but then I like winded myself, and but man, I've done jujitsu since I was a kid. I wrestled in college. I was an Army Ranger, so I just have a lifetime of that mentality of one winning and then two like just overcoming hard shit. So uh, I like in the moment it to me it doesn't feel like I'm overcoming anything. It just feels like I'm still trying to win.
Gotcha.
I don't
That
know.
makes
Like
sense.
in the moment, that's not what I'm thinking. I've never thought like if because like in fights, like your opponents are gonna have moments, and you have to realize that as a fighter, and you try to mitigate that as often as possible, but I know my personality is like my style of fighting is pace, whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, and I know eventually like I'm gonna wear you out. So like to me, it's never been like I'm gonna overcome this. obstacle right now. It's always been just like staying true to who I am, which is just like I like breaking people. You know, that's my thing.
That's a quote right there. I like breaking people.
I
No, but I mean
appreciate
it's awesome to watch you fight, man. I mean, we've been covering Combat FC for almost like a year now, and obviously that whole time you've been a pretty big part of it. So it's cool to see. But to talk a little bit about like your future, and you kind of mentioned it before, but like what the UFC is looking for. Now you have three straight wins in Combat FC. Two of them are finishes, obviously, and even though this last one was a unanimous decision, it was a great fight from the spectator standpoint. So, do you see the UFC being a possible next fight for you?
you know, if I get lucky, I think there's like, I feel like I've been on the UFC's like I've been talked about with the UFC for like the last 2 years, but then, I've had some losses and I was like kind of out of that conversation. And I feel like I'm maybe starting getting back into that conversation, but uh, yeah, I'd say maybe, but like unlikely. I feel like I still probably need a few more fights, which is I'm okay with that. Like I like the experience, and like I think about it, and it's like definitely a goal of mine, but it's not like something like my goal is just to be better. Like my goal right now isn't to be in the UFC. My goal is definitely just to be better than I was last fight, which, if I keep doing that, I'm going to keep winning, and
Yeah. And the
that's
results
my
will
goal.
come with it.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
hopefully the results come with it. But if not, then man, like I still enjoy what I'm doing. Like I love fighting, and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not really expecting anything. I can hope for it, but I'm not expecting anything. It is what it is.
It's a solid mentality to have. I mean, like you kind of said, you keep working, you keep doing what you're doing, it might come anyway, even if you're not expecting it. So I think you're definitely well on your way, at least from what I've seen so far. But to, go back to like obviously what's happening after this fight now, even if you don't get a UFC shot, you have a lot of options right now at Combat FC because obviously you're the flyweight champion, now you're the interim bantamweight champion. So like you've definitely provided them with like a lot of versatility being able to jump between the weight classes. Do you have any idea which one you'd want to fight at next?
I think flyweight. I think one really important thing is like I need to get more reps at flyweight because I've only made flyweight 3 times in my career. Um, and I think because honestly, I have a harder time fighting at flyweight than at bantamweight because like I'm small for a bantamweight, but I'm like really big for a flyweight. Uh, and then what really throws me off about flyweights is their speed, and like seeing that in a fight, like getting that experience of that speed, like I definitely need that. I would like that before I get into the UFC, you know. So that's why I want, and then like my body composition's definitely been changing over the years, like to become lighter, like a flyweight. Um, but I think flyweight. I think I need it for my career to like just to get used to it a little bit more. And I have a really bad habit at flyweight of like not respecting the guys I fight because they feel so small to me, and then I run into stupid shit like that for Dawes fight. Like to me, I should never have ran into that. Um, but it's like it's experience that I need, So I think flyweight for sure.
Gotcha. And so that's like pretty much the weight class that you feel best at going forward, even if it's like maybe a tougher cut to get there.
Yeah, I think it, just with discipline. I think that's definitely my weight class is flyweight.
Gotcha. And like I was talking to Rick Caldwell, Combat FC matchmaker, the night of the fights, and we were talking about like your future. And this is before the fight, so obviously we didn't know the outcome yet. But like he says how you're able to jump back and forth is a really good thing, but also finding you fights at 125 is a bit harder
Really
because there's
difficult.
not as
Yeah,
many. So like,
yeah,
is that like kind of why you stay open-minded about it?
yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
I've never had like an issue when I fought somebody at 35 where and I fought some like pretty high level 35ers like in my pro career. But I've never had an issue where I felt someone and I was like, wow, this guy is crazy strong. Um, so I mean, I feel strong at 135, and to be honest, I feel I can take a better punch, because I can see what's coming at me, like the punches. I feel like I like the 35ers are just a little bit slower than most 25ers, and I can see what's coming at me. Uh, but like, I don't really care what weight I fight at. I think the only difference between the two is just like I need a little bit more time to make flyweight. Whereas bantamweight, like if Rick called me up, he was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a card in 2 weeks. Do you want to fight?" I'm like, "Okay, I could do bantamweight." You know, like that's what bantamweight is for me right now. So, and it's just it's at the end of the day, it's just good experience still, which I think that mat time is very invaluable. You know, for as a fighter.
Gotcha. And like experience wise, even with the people who you train with, I mean, for those who don't know, I mentioned obviously New England Cartel before, but like Rob Font, Calvin Cater, guys like that, like what does it do for you to have those types of, not even just like the skill level of those fighters, but just like their experience and their brains to pick in the gym? Like, what is it like training there?
It's great. I haven't really seen too much of Rob or Calvin because they've been doing their camp up north and with uh, what's that gym with Farasa Hobby? They've been training.
TriStar. Yeah, I've seen
TriStar.
that on Rob's story.
Yeah, they've been training at TriStar quite a bit. So I've only trained with Rob and Calvin maybe like 5 times my entire time at Cartel, but um, it is nice to feel them, like because obviously like going with Rob, you're like, oh fuck, this is like he's really long. And you're like, and he's a great boxer, and he has like he's strong, man. He's really strong. He has pretty good grappling. Um, I think the biggest thing I've gotten out of like training with like guys who are like high ranking is like you get a confidence from that, knowing that it's not gonna get much worse than that in like an actual fight in a regional scene, you know? Uh, and then you kind of learn a few tricks. I've definitely, like, after sparring Rob once, um, I've definitely, like, noticed how he works his jab. And then I kind of stole that and kind of take it into my game. So, it's just like, I think it's pretty valuable to have guys like that because you figure out what works at a high level, versus like if you're training with guys, maybe at a lower level you can get away with some bullshit that's not going to work against good guys, so uh, I think that there's a value to that, and then there's the value of the inspiration that these guys have. They've been there and done that, and they've been there and done that through Tyson, so um, I find a lot of motivation in that.
And I'm glad you brought up Tyson too, because that was going to be my next question. Obviously the fighters is one thing, but as a coach, what does Tyson add to your camps?
Man, I think one of the greatest things about Tyson is his accountability, and then like the culture he has us bring to the gym. There's really no secret to the workouts. Um, and to the training, there's no secret. It's just working your ass off. Like that's the secret. Working your ass off and being there as often as possible, and more importantly, being there for your teammates. Because like I just got done with a fight, but I'm gonna be there tomorrow to train with these guys who have the next fight coming up, and then like when these guys fight, they're gonna be there for me when I have my next fight coming up. So I think that's what I mean about the culture, and like we've definitely figured out like because I love training hard, and like at first if you feel me like if I like the first time training with me, it might be intimidating because you're like, fuck, this guy goes really hard, I don't want to get hurt. But I think uh like with our team is like we know how to train really hard but not to hurt each other. so we can still fight and continue to train hard. Um, I don't know, man. Tyson brings like just great culture and accountability to the team, and he really cares. Like he's definitely one of the coaches who's cared the most about my career and then my life.
Yeah,
He's a
I
great
mean,
guy, man.
it's
Great
so
coach.
it's so cool to see too because it's with some of those coaches, especially in like the Northeast region, because I'm from New Jersey, so we've also had the chance to see some stuff at like Ray Longo's gym. So like just to see how coaches like that, like they're the exact same way with the top guys and then the guys on the regional scene, and it's like amazing to see because at the end of the day, everybody like you're all pro fighters, and the fact that he gives everybody that equal kind of playing field is really cool to see because I mean, I haven't really seen many of the other gyms like throughout the country outside of like our region, but at least up here, it seems like that's usually how it is. But how did you find New England Cartel? Like, was it just because you're from the area?
Well, I'm actually from Las Vegas,
Oh, okay.
and then I moved out here because my wife was going to school, and well, I was actually living in Washington State because I was in the military, and I had just got out of the military. And one of my best friends, Connor, he lived out here in Massachusetts. He lives out here in Massachusetts. And at the time, he was training at Lozon's, and then like I was like, "Hey, bro, I'm moving to Massachusetts also because my wife's going to school over here." And then he was like, "Oh, come train with me." And then so we ended up training in Lozon's for a little bit, and then Connor ended up making the switch to New England Cartel, and I just kind of followed Connor because he's been one of my main training partners for my entire career. Um, and it's worked out great, man. It really has worked out great with Tyson, and yeah.
Were you fighting at all before you got there? Because I would imagine you already had kind of like trained being in the army and stuff like that. And I know you mentioned you wrestled too before you even got into jujitsu and all that.
Yeah, so I trained I trained mostly jujitsu in
Okay.
one in Washington State. I mean, I had my first pro fight in 2014. Yeah, 2014. I had my first fight in 2014, but I never really had like an MMA gym. It was always like me wrestling in college, and then once I got done competing, I was like, "Fuck, I need something else." And then I started just taking MMA fights just from training at a jiu-jitsu gym. That's like been most of my career up until kind of recently, honestly.
Oh wow.
Uh yeah, I know. And then like honestly most of my career has been like mostly grappling and then like just kind of showing up to a fight, game plan, grapple them to death. That's been my career, you know. So, and then and I've gone away with it because I'm like I have really great grappling. Um, but like I'm a mixed martial artist, so like I've been trying to like just box a lot more, and you know it's definitely changed a lot since I moved out here to Massachusetts because there's definitely like more of a boxing influence on Massachusetts than like all the other areas, even Vegas. Vegas is a very grappling heavy like city for MMA. But yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could definitely even see that just from like the times that I've been able to go to Massachusetts and even talking to some of the people like from Combat FC. Like I was talking to Joe Cav a couple weeks, I think, before the last card, and he mentioned like Marcus Davis, and I was like, oh my God, like that boxing culture really does go way back. So I definitely see that. And so you mentioned like you were training at jujitsu gyms really for most of your career. And I was going to ask you about this anyway because it's just an interesting story. But your first amateur fight was against Sean O'Malley, wasn't it? So you were just
yeah.
training at a jujitsu gym for that pretty much, or
That one I just got done wrestling in college, and then
wow.
my buddy, I literally just finished wrestling in college, and then my buddy one day was like, "Hey, bro," he fought professionally, and his whole base was just wrestling, and he had a crazy conditioning. So he would wrestle guys, and then just like kind of spam ugly ass striking, and his conditioning was so great, he could just get people tired. He didn't train. Like literally, all he did was just he would run and wrestle, and he made it to like I think 6-0, like just doing that. And he was like, "Hey, bro," and he wrestled with me in college, and he was like, "Hey, brother, there's a fight next week. Do you wanna fight?" I was like, sure. He was like, it's for a title. I was like, okay, I'll do that. He's like, we gotta lie about your record to they'll give you this title. And yeah, that was my first fight with O'Malley
That's crazy. And
back in
like,
Montana. Yeah.
wow, yeah, that's really going back then.
Yeah, no.
And what was that like? Because I remember a while back at one of the virtual press conferences, I asked you like a little bit about it, but just to like kind of fill in like my audience a little bit on that story, like what did that fight go like?
Uh, dude, it was just honestly, it was an interesting experience. Even like the drive up there, because it was like there's a crazy snowstorm. We had to go through these mountains, and my buddy had a truck, and we packed up his truck. And then some of us had to go in the truck bed, and he had a lid over the truck bed, and his truck was like hydroplaning just to get through the mountain. It was great. It was a fun experience, but and then like the actual fight, you know, Sean O'Malley wasn't Sean O'Malley back then, but it was mostly like he would strike me for a little bit, I would take him down, and then I would honestly I wasn't even like really ground and pounding until like maybe the second or third round, and then after a while, he got really tired. I took him down. I was grounded pounding him, and then he turned around, and then like covered his head. I didn't hit him in the back of the head. I hit him like on the side of the head. But earlier, I did hit him in the back of the head. So it's not his fault. But what I'm saying is, in the fifth round, he turned around and held his head. And he was like, "The back of my head, the back of my head," and the ref stopped it, and I got disqualified. But
Wow.
but yeah, that's how that fight went. But it was it was just it was fun. It was a fun little excursion. From like wrestling, and I went with my friends. And Terrence McKinney. I don't know. He fights in the UFC now. Back then, he didn't even fight. I remember we were trying to get him to fight on that same card. He's like, "Fuck no, dude! He's like, I ain't never fighting." That's what he told us. Like, we tried to get him to fight so many times. So he was always like, "Hell no, I ain't." He's like, "I'm never fighting."
Well, that's definitely changed. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was my corner. Yeah, he was literally my corner. Him and my best friend Joaquin were literally my corner for that O'Malley fight. But
That's
yeah, this is a
wild.
little backstory. Yeah, isn't that funny?
And so like when you look at it now, like obviously seeing where he's at, I know he just lost the title, but obviously, UFC champion at one point. Like, is that like what's that like looking back at where you were at the time versus where you are now, and then being like, man, I fought him like back when I didn't really know much of anything, like besides like wrestling, like grappling.
I think it was just like looking back at it, I barely think about it anymore. Yeah, just because I feel like it's been brought up so many times, and then now it's like at this point, it's like because like O'Malley is just a big name, and like I'll randomly someone would be like, "Hey, dude, I saw you fought O'Malley," like a friend. He's like, "I didn't fucking know that." I'm like, "Yeah," but yeah, to me, it's just it is what it is. That's not the same O'Malley that's O'Malley now, So I take it with like a grain of salt. He's in a way better position fighting than I am. Uh, but I don't really it's cool. I think like I like especially back in those days, like MMA is like just a very small world, and it's cool. It's cool to have shared like a ring with Sean O'Malley, who was a champ. I think that's the coolest thing about it. Is like I'm grateful to like have shared a moment with someone like O'Malley.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is a cool thing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And hey, you still have a good chance at like, getting yourself on a similar level. I mean, hey, you're only 29. Don't listen to your sister. You're not getting old yet. You're in your athletic prime, dude. But um before we go here, because I don't want to keep you too much longer, obviously. Um, but I always ask fighters this before like the end of the interviews, but for anybody who wants to become a fan of you or has become a fan of you over the past like year or through this interview, what is like one thing about whether it's you personally or your fight style, what's one thing that you'd want a new fan of yours to know about you?
Just know that I'm here for. I'm not here for anything specific, but I'm just here for because I love this shit. And if you watch one of my fights, it's either A, gonna be very quick and dominant, or B, it's gonna be fucking probably crazy. And Yeah, that's what you can expect out of me.
Yeah, for sure. And I can vouch for that now, obviously, having seen you fight in person now twice. The energy for your fights is always crazy. I enjoy watching it. Like I said, that fight that you just had with Tom Picciano is probably the best fight I've seen in person. So that was a really fun one. And thank you for taking the time on your birthday, man. I do appreciate that. I
I
obviously
appreciate you,
I didn't
bro.
know that coming in, and then I saw your Instagram story, and I was like, no, I was like, really today? And then I looked on Tapology. I was like, oh, that's crazy.
That's
So,
funny. Yeah, no, I don't mind. It's I appreciate you doing the interview with me, brother.
of course, man, I'd love to have you on again at some point.
Thank you very much. Same here, man.
Thank you so much.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you going hard.